Welcome back, everyone. This is Austin Reville on our From the Vault series presented by 2FC Tactical right here in New Prague, Minnesota. We like to highlight interesting and unique firearms that come through our shop and in our personal collection. You know, when I started this channel, I was really worried I was going to run out of ones to talk about, but we haven't even hardly made a dent in my personal collection, and we continue to have cool guns show up. So we got another one for you today that has a very interesting history, and we'll get into that here in a minute. However, for those of you guys that have subscribed, thank you so much for helping this channel grow. For those of you that haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. We want to continue to beat the algorithm and expand this channel to bring you more and more. As we're getting into our shooting range, one of the cool things that we'll be able to do with our indoor shooting range is shoot these guns that we've shown to you guys and show you some live fire exercises, and we're looking forward to that. With that being said, let's talk about the MAB Model D pistol that we have for you here today. So the Model D pistol was made by the French. This was a 1933 design, and it was actually made all the way up through the 1980s. Despite the fact it was made all the way up through the 1980s, you know, you're talking about a period of 50-something years, only about 200,000 of these pistols were made. Just to put that in perspective, that J.P. Sauer 38H that we did, 200,000 of those pistols were made just between 1939 and 1945. One of the main reasons for this slow production, 1940 all the way up to 1944, 4 years there, obviously the Germans occupied France. While they used these pistols, and they did accept them, and this is one of those pistols that they used, and we'll show you some of the markings on it to indicate that, they were more enamored with their German design P38s. The Lugers, yes, the 38H, the HSC from Mauser, the Viz 35, the high power. This was not really one that they gravitated towards. This was designed, the Model D was a little bit larger than the C model, which was more of a civilian pocket pistol design. This was designed with police and military use in mind. It is chambered in a 7.65mm Browning or 32 ACP cartridge. Again, keeping it in line with a lot of the pistols that we've talked about. This cartridge was greatly proliferated throughout Europe, as well as the United States, but especially in Europe. This particular gun does feature a button mag release, which for Europe is very unusual at the time. We have a unique Count 9 from World War II that also features a similar idea. Again, somewhat unusual for the time. This one, and I'm going to see if I can get it up where you can see it, does have the German proof marks on it. Right there on the slide, on the right-hand side, right underneath on the frame, right underneath the slide. So this one is a German-occupied pistol. It was made throughout the war, and like I said, all the way throughout the 1980s. Now, like all things German collectibles, a lot of these were faked. One of the reasons why is just worth more money if it's a German-occupied pistol versus a late, post-war production. One of the ways to tell it is with this barrel bushing. This one is on the outside, whereas the ones that would come later would feature an inside barrel bushing. So that's just one way that you can tell. So if you look at this gun, and I don't have one here to show you, this does give you 1903 pocket pistol vibes a little bit, and it's kind of somewhat similar. You do feature the grip safety here. That is your only safety. You do not have a manual safety on it. Your slide catch is right here, which I would lock the slide in place and function as a safety, if you will, but obviously it locks the slide open. Again, you have your button magazine release. It doesn't drop away quite as smooth as a modern would. You do have your MAB markings right on the plastic grips, and you have the very blocky, typical French serial number lettering that you would see here. This is very similar to what we see with the Berthier rifle, which I have one here. Well, it's not really highlighted, but if you look at the bolt there, you can sort of see the serial numbers. It's very typical Frenchy block design on that. Now these pistols actually worked quite well. They're very smooth. Again, 32 ACP, very light kick. It's a very smooth cartridge for a semi-automatic, especially at this time. Widely available. The guns, obviously, the French-German conflict ended relatively quickly. we'll put that as nicely as we can. Germany conquered France very quickly, so these did not have a long service life for the French military. Post-war, they started looking at other sidearms to use, though these would pop up again in French Indochina. During the first French Indochina War in Vietnam, that we obviously will get involved with in the second phase of that war. So these did serve well beyond the time, but with the fact that only 200,000 were made, you can kind of imply that they were not widely used, widely accepted. The commercial variants had a little bit more success, but then again, post-war, going into the modern European phase, gun ownership has obviously dwindled and kind of fallen out of favor, especially in places like France, where it's very hard to get one. Sidearms are virtually impossible to get, so you don't see very many of these. It's a very cool pistol. While they're not necessarily overtly valuable, we should probably do a video on collector pieces that you can get into without having to spend a fortune. It is getting harder and harder to get into collecting. This is a really awesome way to do it. The French sidearms aren't outrageous. You're not talking thousands and thousands of dollars here. You're talking hundreds. We don't advertise prices necessarily on YouTube, but you can for sure check us out online if you want to see some of it. But when you look at guns that I would like to collect and get into it, I do get those emails from some of you. I'd like to get into guns and collect. How do I do it? It is a lot harder to do today than it was before. Back in the day, you could get a Mosin Nagant, for instance, for $25. Well, now they're well over 400 in order for you to pick one of those up. And unfortunately, when it gets to the German and Japanese guns, those are really skyrocketing. So this, because it's somewhat of a forgotten gun of World War II, you can kind of get in at a relatively low price range. Now that's why you need to be careful which one you buy, because a lot of these were faked. And just be sure you look at the bushings and how it was done. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and there's so many people out there and references online. But these guns did serve the underground quite heavily as well, and that's really where this gun somewhat shines, because they were available. The French underground used them quite a bit against their occupiers, and they, again, kind of like the Viz 35, ended up kind of becoming a little bit of a thorn in the side of Germany, as their occupied zones ended up seeing increased resistance throughout the war before the liberation armies obviously came in. And that's where this gun saw its most action. The Germans used them, especially in France, but not heavily. Now this one does come with a holster here. This is another one that does have, and it's pretty faint, and I don't know if you'll be able to pick it up on camera, it does have the U.S. service member's name and serial number carved into the back of this holster of who captured this. And like with all the other ones, we are continuing to do some research now, and we'll do what we call the Founder's Almanac on our website. If you go to our About Us tab, and that is where we put out articles on these guns as well as others that we have done in the past. You can certainly watch the videos here on our channel, and as we find out more about these service members, we will for sure put that out there. While we can't necessarily place this to a specific battle, we could definitely place it to an area or throughout his service career in World War II. But I do appreciate you tuning in. Very cool pistol. Very, very honored that we got an opportunity to see this. Until next time, we'll see you then.